Welcome to Payments on Tap, your executive happy hour for payments leadership, serving insights, and crafting the future of payments together. We're going to celebrate Women's History Month with a special series, Women in Leadership Payments Edition. In this series, I'm sitting down with some incredible women across the payments ecosystem, leaders who are shaping strategy, driving innovation, managing risk, building partnerships, and influencing the future of financial services. We're going to talk about their career journeys, the pivots and lessons along the way, the mentors who made the difference, and what it really takes to lead in an industry that's constantly evolving. And this series, it's about visibility, it's about impact, and it's about learning from women who are not just participating in the payment space, but actively redefining it. So grab your coffee, your notebook, or maybe something even a little stronger, and let's get into it. So everyone, thank you for joining. I'm your host, Elyssa Morgan from Niche, and today's guest is someone who doesn't just work in payments, she helps shape how we talk about it. So Angela Murphy is the Vice President of Marketing and Solutions at Pigeon and widely known across the industry as Payments Elsa. She's built a powerful presence as a voice in payments, blending FinTech innovation, strategic storytelling, and bold industry insights. And in 2024, she was recognized with the Paytech Women Emerging Trendsetter Award. And it's really easy to see why. Angela, I'm really thrilled to have you here to kick off the series with me today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Excited to have you. So now, Angela, you've built a really strong voice in payments and fintech and being recognized as a thought leader in the space. But how did it all start? Let's get that origin story. So did you always know you'd end up in payments?
Absolutely not. I did not start in payments. I did not start anywhere near here. Actually, I started in academia. So I have a PhD in rhetoric from the University of Kansas, and I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do with it, but I knew that I didn't want to go into nonprofit or to be a professor. I knew I wanted something different for my life. And that journey was kind of strange for me, but what essentially ended up happening is I trusted in myself and I started applying for jobs on LinkedIn. I had a lot of coffee meetings with people where I lived, and I just would hand them my resume. If I could convince them to have coffee with me, I would hand them my resume and say, if you had this resume, what would you say? How would you talk about your skill set? Can you please help me with your years of experience to understand who I am or who I could be? And they responded really well to that question. And the result of those meetings was me coming up with the idea that I work at the intersection of strategy and insight. And so then I went to LinkedIn and I applied for every single job that had strategy in the title
Okay.
for months. And one of the jobs that I applied for was at a fintech company or a payments company here in Kansas, which is where I live. And it was a manager of strategic partnerships. I applied and sent in my resume, did everything that you do on LinkedIn or that you're
Yeah.
supposed to do on LinkedIn. And I got a phone call and said, would you please come in for an interview? And I thought, okay, this is the HR interview. I'm ready. I've done a bunch of these. I can do this.
Yeah.
And I ended up at their offices for like 3 hours. I had no idea what was
That's
going on.
intense.
Yeah, I know, I know. I had no idea what was going on behind the scenes. I just told them my story. I said that I really cared, that I wanted to try, and if they would give me a chance, that I would do my best. And there are a lot of other details to that particular situation, but their chief customer officer believed in me and believed in what I had to say. And they gave me a job as the manager of strategic partnerships. And that's how I came into the industry. And literally a LinkedIn application.
No, that's a great story. And sometimes, and we'll talk about this, is that you just need someone to see your value and see that you can do this, right? Even if you might be a little nervous or feel like maybe, ooh, this is a big step. So
Mhm.
that's great. So you started there, but was there a moment early on where you were like, payments are actually super fascinating and I love them? They are for me now.
So I come from this ideology that problems need to be solved. And I think that that stemmed from my academic background. When I was in the academic format, one of the classes that I was in, I wanted to write a paper about a specific topic, and I couldn't find enough scholarly peer reviewed resources to write the paper. And I thought that that was a problem. And so then I decided to make that problem the source of my dissertation. I basically based my dissertation on information that wasn't there.
Yeah.
And so then when I moved into payments and I moved into this company, I realized that there was just so much that I didn't know. There were acronyms, phraseology, behaviors, understanding, experience that I had never had. And I thought, okay, more to learn, more to do. Maybe
Yeah.
I can bring something to this conversation. I just have to, you know, sit here, listen, know what I don't know, and then maybe I can do something of value here because what I realized at the time is that it was about how money moves and the way that the stories were being told about how money moves weren't satisfying to me.
Hmm.
So I decided that that was my place.
And you may have already answered this a little bit with what you just said, that there's so many acronyms and it almost has its own language, payments, right? But what really surprised you most about payments when you first entered the space?
How much you have to study. If I'm being completely honest, if you are somebody that is listening to this who is a practitioner, or maybe you're somebody that wants to join the industry, there's so many acronyms, there's so many phrases, there's so many entities that are involved in money movement in the United States in particular. And I I just want to give you like this little caveat lesson story from my own life. When I came into this, I knew absolute zero. I went into my office early and stayed late every day. My lunches were sat at my desk, and I had color coded flashcards for the phrases, the terminology, the meetings that I had the privilege to be a part of. If I heard something and I didn't know what it was, I studied it because I wanted to be good at it. And this is something that people don't know about the payments industry. You don't go to college for payments. Who's going to teach you? And so I went from this purely academic background where you study, you study, you study, you're in your discipline, you figure it out, you create a point of view, you matriculate, it's all wonderful. And then I went into this world filled with assumptions. And I thought, wait, if there's all these people assuming that you know what this alphabet soup means, then there's a whole bucket of people that have no
No
idea.
idea. Correct.
And maybe I could do something here.
What are you doing there? If you want to put a little info out there to the listeners.
Well, I'm trying to make payments and financial technology and financial services more accessible for people. So I am widely known as Payments Elsa. I think that that's an accessible brand for people to get behind. I have just recently launched a podcast. It's called Icebreakers in FinTech. And I think it's going to be a journey for me and viewers, listeners, etc., to walk through what does it take to understand financial services, how money moves, the rails, the terminology. We all just take for granted that money goes from here to here,
Hmm.
and we don't think about why. and we don't think about impact. And the why and the impact, in my personal opinion, should underpin every single thing that we do, because money underpins and impacts every single human on this planet. And so
100%.
if you're looking for a place in space to have that conversation, I have a podcast. I just launched it. It's called Icebreakers in FinTech. I would love you to like, share, subscribe, follow, send me questions. And I was a teacher at a university for 4 years, and I taught 2 years in addition to that. There is no such thing as a question you shouldn't ask. Just ask the question. I am here. I will answer it.
If you don't know what you don't know and you don't ask, how do you grow? Right? No, that was great. So I want to get back to your career journey, and I want to talk a little bit, if you have an example or a story, what was one challenge that really shaped you?
Wow. Out of how many?
I know. Just one.
I think that my one of my biggest challenges was feeling like I fit inside a room. Why do I fit in here? What am I bringing to the table? And luckily, early in my career, I had a champion, and she brought me into several rooms that I would never have been in otherwise.
Hmm.
And even though I didn't always know the terminology, even though I needed a lot of work, and I'm going to be really honest, I needed a lot of work. I needed a lot of polish at the time, but I had some gumption for our, friends from the South. That's part of my family is from the South. So I wanted to be there. I had some
Yeah.
grit. But she brought me in, and I would sit there and I would just write notes. And then she would take the time with me out of her day, after the day, in the day, whenever we had time in the day, sitting in a car, going from a meeting with a client. And I would just be able to ask her questions. And I think that when you're a leader and you're seeing people come up that are going to be the next generation or that are in the, mid tier behind you, that you have to provide an environment where they're not afraid to ask questions. And that was probably the greatest gift that she ever gave me.
No, that's a great story. And I think a lot of folks can agree with that. Having someone there bring you in and show you kind of the ropes and give you a chance, kind of a big deal. Kind of a big deal for most people growing in their career. So you were in those rooms, you were brought in those rooms, and then eventually you kind of earned your way into those rooms on your own, right? Was there ever, and you already talked about like, what do I bring to the table, right? Was there ever moments where you questioned when you made it into that room, do I belong here at this table?
I think that I've had many of those situations. And for a lot of people listening here, I am sure that you've also had those types of situations. I remember being in a room and negotiating a deal with a major payment services provider in the US. And in the back of my head, there was a lot of fear. Am I the right person to be sitting here? A lot of the people that were at that table that were a part of that conversation came from banking, financial services, traditional methods of how you get into this industry. And I was FinTech. And that's not always something that garners a level of respect in our industry. What I leaned on in that time was the facts of the situation. And that's something that's really important to me because it's a lesson from my mom. So my mom always said, stick to the facts. And I prepared for the meeting. I knew the facts of what everybody was coming to the table with. And I went in and I presented the best case that I could based on the fact. We ended up winning the contract. And I think that sometimes people forget that the lessons that you learn that are on the softer side of the news, even if it is something like stick to the facts, are the things that will carry you through esoteric trash.
Yeah, it applies. Yeah. When you're in those rooms, so particularly that scenario where you're feeling, was I the right person to do this? I'm just going to stick to the facts. You still have to have some level of confidence behind that, right? When you're in that room, right? How did you build up the confidence to say, this is, you know, sticking to the facts, this is going to get me there, this is going to close the deal, like I can do this? Where did you get the confidence when you were in those rooms, when you were feeling a little nervous?
So I think that confidence is different for every single person. And I think that from my perspective, you can anchor confidence to any aspect of yourself. So every person that is listening to this has something that you know that's your thing. It could be sports, it could be figure skating, it could be mahjong, solitaire, it could be baking, it could be musical theater, dance, whatever that is in your life that's your passion, you know so much about that. If somebody asks you a question about it, you could give them an entire presentation or a 10-minute explanation as to why that matters to you. That is an element of confidence. I know this. I'm passionate about this. And so, what I ask people to do, or what I encourage people to do, is to look to that anchor within yourself. The thing that you know so much about, you can tie that level of certainty just briefly into a work situation to give you somewhere to go back to where you can then say, this is my perspective. This is what I've brought to this conversation.
Now, you had mentioned a little bit this mentor, this sponsor for you, and how she changed the trajectory of your career by bringing you into these different rooms that you would have been in otherwise. So, are there any other mentors that kind of helped you along the way change and pivot? Or do you rely on a lot of what she showed you to kind of carry throughout your career?
I've had the privilege of having multiple people essentially allow me to put my bow on their kite tails
Yeah,
in this industry. And so I would name specifically Audrey Blackman, Peter Davey, Kevin Olson. I would also say Gail Burgos, as well as Stephanie Tish. All of these people have truly believed in me from the word go and have brought me. Oh, I also do need to say Debbie Smart and Nancy McKenzie.
for sure. Can't leave them out.
I they have always been the people that show up and show out for me in ways that I have no idea. I can pretty much guarantee you that I wouldn't be where I am right now if those very special people hadn't thought one day, oh, yeah, what about Elsa? What about Angela? I think that she has a place here, and there's not enough gratitude in this world to express for those people.
It's a great community for sure. Now, thinking back, you have all of this support. Was there anyone who advocated, or can you think about a particular moment where someone advocated for you and you were like, no, I'm not ready for that. I don't think I'm ready for that. And they were like, yes, you are. You can do this.
Kevin Olson regularly kicks my tail end. I'll
Yeah.
put it that way. We work at the same company, and Kevin is part of the reason that I was brought on to this company for my day job. And basically, every single step of the way, he has said to me, yeah, you can do this. Let's go. Oh, you want, no, content? Go. Opinion? Go. Say what you have to say? Go. Apply for that speaking invitation or that speaking opportunity? Go. He is really somebody that is a true advocate. And every time that I have ever doubted myself and said, I don't know that I can do this, especially in the last 2 to 2.5 years, I can point directly to him and say, that person was in my corner
Yeah.
and he tossed me off the side of the ship and said, I've got the life preserver, but I want to see
Yes.
if you can swim first.
Yeah. It's so important to have someone on your team have your back. Like there's something really powerful that you guys are both working towards the same thing, but then you have individual goals and you guys kind of help each other, and having someone in your corner like that is such a big deal. Such a big
It
deal.
is.
It's a
It
game
is. And
changer.
it's also terrifying because like they see you. That
Hmm.
person sees you day in and day out.
Hmm.
So it's
They're
like,
going to remember if you mess it up.
I
No.
know, I know. It's like, oh, I give you advice and you screwed it up. Okay.
And I think that actually there's so much value in that too, Angela. And we're going off script a little bit here, but when you mess up, I can speak for myself. I am someone who's like, tell me. Because how much do you learn from that moving forward? Because again, you don't know what you don't know. And having someone in your corner who's just like, great job, instead of, that was really good, but consider this, being able to take that criticism in a positive way and apply it moving forward is really, really important in growth for yourself in your career and where you want to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to put a pin in that because I think that that's going to be the thing I talk about at the end of the episode.
I love it. Put a pin in it. So
Superpowers.
superpowers. So now that you're in this leadership role, and you got folks looking to you as this thought leader, you got people who are looking to you almost for mentorship as well. So how do you approach mentoring others?
I think that I approach it from an idea of where I was when they were. So, one, I am still in a place where I am challenged by the idea that I would be considered to be a mentor to someone because I still feel like I have so much to learn. I also realize that there is a lot of power and potential in being able to learn from my mistakes and to share with people what those things are while also giving them the ability to see the industry for what it is, because sometimes that's just the facts of the situation. When people come to me as a mentor, the thing that I try to frame it through is a process. I didn't come out of a box this way.
Mhm.
And another big piece of advice that I received from my family is, and I hope this doesn't anger people. I don't advocate for doing this, but my family always asks me, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And so please don't take that as
No.
me saying anything along those lines. I don't think that anybody should do that.
Peter turned out. Yeah, no.
It's a metaphor for tackling a large problem. And the metaphor for tackling a large problem is you do it piece by piece. I think in a lot of ways in this industry, the way that I approach mentorship is to help people bite-sized piece their way through the things that they need to feel like they can reach these gargantuan goals. Because when I started, I had zero. I started from absolute zero. And I flashcarded and news articled and sat in the meeting and asked a question and listened my way into where I am now. And all of those tiny little things are what paved the way for me to be where I am now. In terms of the way that we handle mentorship and the way that I handle mentorship, I look at individuals as trying to solve all things all at once. One, it's untenable. Two, it's not sustainable. And three, if we're being really honest, it's unconscionable. We have to be able to address the industry as it is from where we are. And only once we do that are we able to engage in the growth journey that allows us to be thought leaders.
I feel like there's an aspect to it of your experience is so valuable to someone else. And you can meet them, like you had just said, where they are and help them with that one piece at a time because you've been there, lived it, learned it. And you just being open to sharing and helping is, again, a game changer for them. So that was great. And I want to pivot a little bit into this interesting relationship between authority and influence. And I'd love to get your perspective on this and how you see it in our industry specifically.
Oh dear, how many people am I going to make mad today? So, I have a little bit of a different perspective on this concept because I am somebody that has a terminal degree. And so, with that comes an amount of perception if somebody doesn't know me. I think that the people, like, you know me, there are people that might be listening to this who know me. I don't walk around asking people to call me by my title. However, there is a perception that this confers some kind of authority to me. I have never leaned into that. I believe that the relationship between authority and influence is inherently complicated, but you can pull it apart a little bit. If you can influence the decisions of others with understanding, with kindness, and with information, that is worth all of the authority in the world to come down and say, do this because I said so.
For sure.
So, in a lot of ways, in my opinion, your ability to understand others and to influence others is what provides authority in those situations. Because if you flip the script and you are the individual that says, it's this way because I said it's this way and it's going to be this way, and
Yeah.
nobody challenges me, that doesn't give you influence. That only gives you authority on the matter.
Mhm.
And in a lot of my personal experience in this industry, the people who are treated as authorities have very little information, intelligence, or any kind of perspective that would propel us into a better future for payment.
I think a good way to put that is you can have all the authority and without the influence, you can't get there. Right? You can have
Yeah,
your results don't necessarily come because you are in charge and you say so. They come because you influence folks to help you get to where you want to go and yeah, to follow.
exactly.
Yeah,
And we
no.
see regular the examples of this. It's like, oh, I've been in the industry for 32 years, and because I say it's this way, it's this way. Okay, from where I'm sitting, you seem really committed to that particular level of understanding. And the rest of us are actually here to have a conversation. Would you like to be a part of that? Like,
Right.
it's an invitation for them or invitation for any individual that is operating from authority only perspective. It's an invitation for them to meet themselves where they are and say, "Hey, you're welcome to the table And also, there are 9 other people here, and a conversation is here as well.
Authority doesn't invite collaboration, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So we're kind of getting to the close of the episode. Angela, I would love for you to let the listeners know if you had some word of advice. What would you give women, say mid-career, who may feel stuck or unsure of their next move?
I think that the next moves start small. So, what scares you the most? Is it you're in a meeting and you don't say anything in the meeting? Could you ask a question in the meeting? Just one. That's possible. Is it, I would like to be more active on LinkedIn? You don't have to make a big post, but is there a topic that you would like to learn more about? And you could go to a thought leader's page and comment with your question and invite other people to dialogue with you. Is it that you want to maybe take a new certification and you want to learn more about the industry and you want to get that certification? Could you go to your boss and say, would the company be willing to sponsor me in terms of professional development? A lot of the things that we believe are insurmountable in our industry require basically 2 clock ticks of a shift either way for us to start on an entirely new journey. And I don't want anybody that's listening to this to feel like, well, I could never do North Star Dream X over here. You can. It starts with the tiniest of steps. And I really hope that as a result of listening to this, if you don't even know what that step is, if you want to do something and you have questions about that, ask me. I'll try to point you in the right direction. And I'm going to be 100% honest. I might not be the person to give you the right answer. But the thing is, there aren't right answers. And that's the last thing that I will leave you all with, is that there is no such thing as a right answer. We make decisions as professionals, as women, as people, based on the information that we have at the time. We assign the value of a good or bad decision after the fact with more information. Please do not let yourself get hung up in that dichotomy when you could just take 1 inch forward to bring yourself closer to where you want to be.
Oh, that was a beautiful ending, Angela. Remember, one piece at a time, one question at a time. Lean on your people, reach out to new people, connect with new people. You'll get to where you guys want to go, right? So, Angela, thank you so much for joining me for this special Women in Leadership Payments Edition, Payments on Tap. And is there any way for our listeners to follow you or maybe keep track of you on your journey?
Yes, absolutely. If you all would, please do follow me and all of my projects at Payments Elsa. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on TikTok for more short form content. I am also on YouTube and I have a podcast titled Icebreakers in FinTech. If you have any questions, suggestions, or content that you would like me to cover in any and all of my projects, please do reach out to me and I will be happy to do so.
And if any of you have trouble connecting with Payments Elsa, I know a girl who can get in touch with her, so you let me know and we'll get you guys connected. This series is really close to my heart. Visibility matters, representation matters, and hearing the real stories behind leadership and payments, including the pivots, the risks, the courage, it all matters. So I'm really grateful, Angela, again, you kicked off this series with us and shared your journey, your insight, and your voice with our listeners. And everybody listening in, you heard it here first. Strong leadership, bold strategy, and the future of payments on tap. Take care, everybody. For those listening in, this has been Payments on Tap, your executive happy hour for payments leadership, serving insights, and crafting the future of payments together. Be sure to subscribe, share, and send us your hot topics so we can put the next topic on tap. Cheers.